This video is going to show you how to make a complete fitness tracker from start to finish. Now, I released 2 videos before this that tackle different parts of building this tracker. The video that you're currently watching is part 1 and part 2 merged together into a single video for your convenience. If you're interested in just a certain area, part 1 is going to show you how to make a meal tracker that returns nutritional information and tracks your daily calories. Part 2 is going to show you how to add exercise tracking along with a weight tracker. I won't take up any more of your time. This is the total fitness tracker in Excel. Why would you pay for a calorie and fitness tracker when I'm going to show you how to make one for free in Excel? Not only is this one free, but it's also completely customizable to fit your needs. You're going to be able to type in any food or homemade meal that you make and have the calories, proteins, carbs, or whatever the hell you want appear automatically. We're going to track your weight, track your exercise, track your goals, tell you how many calories you've had each day, how many you have remaining, and so much more. And best of all, like I said, I'm going to teach you how to do this completely for free in Excel. So to make this as authentic as possible, I am starting out with a completely blank Excel worksheet, and you should do the same. The first thing that I'm going to have you do is create 3 tabs on the bottom, and we're going to do this by clicking the little plus sign next to where it says Sheet 1. I'm going to click it once, another one appears, click it twice, and a third sheet appears, and that's a good place for us to start. Now these 3 sheets, I don't just want them called Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and Sheet 3. We want to call them something different. And there's 2 ways to change the name of a sheet. You can double click into it and you'll be able to enter kind of a typing mode where you can write anything you want. Or if that isn't working for some reason, you can go ahead and right click on any 3 of the names. You can see that rename is an option. I'm going to click that. And then again, you enter that typing mode and you can start to type whatever you want to name them. For our first tab, we're going to call it Fitness Overview. I'm going to right click on the next one, go to rename. And for the second tab, we're going to call it Meal Tracker. And on my third tab, we're going to call it Meal Library. And of course, you can name them whatever you want, but if you're going to be following along in this tutorial, it makes sense to name them what I'm naming them. Now down below, you can see that the sheet that's highlighted is Meal Library. And I can tell that it's highlighted because it's a little bit more light than the other tabs. And the first place that we actually want to start is the Meal Tracker tab. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that. And you can see when I clicked on it, it also became kind of highlighted. So I know that I'm now operating in the Meal Tracker space. Now in this Meal Tracker tab, this is ultimately going to be where we go in, we type out the name of a meal, and then all of the calories and all of the information we're going to have automatically appear. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of label the columns that we want to put data into. So we're going to type out in column A, date. In column B, we're going to type food. In column C, I'm going to type the calories, and then carbs, protein, and E. Now there's technically nothing wrong with how the columns are labeled, but I want to make them a little bit bigger so it's easier to look at. I'm going to click the 1 next to date so that it highlights the entire row 1. And up where it says the font size, this little A with the arrow pointed up next to it, I'm going to click a couple of times to get them a little bit bigger and a little bit nicer looking. When I did that, of course, the columns are too small to see everything. And a quick trick that you can do is if you click on the little space between the A and the 1 to highlight everything, I can then adjust the columns to any size I want. And the advantage of doing it this way when everything is highlighted is that all of the cells in the spreadsheet are going to format to that same size. So right now I know that A, B, C, D, and E are all the exact same size. There's really no advantage to that besides I think it looks way better. I'm going to make it bold and I'm going to click underline. And the last thing that I want to do is add some color to my spreadsheet. Now instead of just creating colors at random, I'm going to choose 2 colors for this entire tutorial. I'm going to make a gray section, and what that means is that we only need to enter information 1 time, or that the data is automatically going to populate in that space, or I'm going to make blue columns, and that means that it's going to be an area of the spreadsheet that we're going to continually enter data. So for example, of course, we're going to need to go in and type out what we ate each day, so that's going to be a blue area. The good news is when you look at everything that we've written down here, The only thing that we're going to need to enter day by day is just the date and the food that we ate. So I'm going to go ahead. I highlighted A through B by holding down and dragging my mouse on both of them. And like I said, we're going to make it blue. I'm going to make the top cells a little bit darker blue just so it looks good. And then I'm going to add some borders just so it looks a little bit cleaner. Calories, carbs, and proteins, I want to make a function that is going to automatically populate, so we only need to do it one time. And for that reason, I'm going to label them gray. Same as before, I'll make the top a little bit darker so it looks cleaner. And I really think that cell borders make everything just look a little bit nicer. Now, like I said, the ultimate goal of what we're going for here is that we're going to go into our spreadsheet. We're going to type the date. So I'll just say 1/1/2023 because that's when everybody starts the diet, right? I want to be able to type in something like chili. And then when I do that, I want the calories, the carbs, and the protein to automatically appear. And we're going to be able to get the spreadsheet to do that. But in order for it to automatically appear every time that we type it in, we need to tell Excel only one time how many calories, carbs, and protein chili has. Where we're going to store that information is in the meal library tab. So you can think of it as the area of the spreadsheet that has the one-time information on every kind of food item. Down below, same as before, I'm going to click in the meal library, and of course everything is blank right now. I'm going to make the cells a little bit bigger so it's easier to see the same way that we did before. And this time I really only need 4 columns. We're going to go through and we're going to label A, food, B, I'm going to call calories, C, we're going to go with carbs, and then D is protein. Just a side note, these are the kind of generic health things that I decided to make the tutorial on. If you wanted to add a column that said like sugar or maybe a certain vitamin, you certainly could, and you could either put it in place of, B, C, or D, or you can add it into E, F, G indefinitely. So if you want more information for each food item, feel free to add it at any time. This is completely optional, but just to make this a little bit easier to look at, I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to make the font a little bit bigger. But if you don't want to do that in your spreadsheet, that's completely okay. We're going to make it bold, underlines, and then I'm going to add some color again. But again, this is completely optional. It's not going to make the spreadsheet any better or any worse. And the spreadsheet looks good now. So everything we do in this library, we only need to do one time. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in a couple of different foods that I know that I'm going to be eating in the next couple of weeks. I've added just 5 to start. We're going to build the spreadsheet in a way that we can add more items as the year goes on. So don't feel like you need to do everything right now. You can add, you can subtract, you can adjust too as you go on throughout the year and as you want to change certain meals in your life. The only really important thing is that you just list out every item one time. There's no need to do a different apple. And if you had a situation where you had 2 variety of apples, all you need to do is label them more specifically. So you could say one is Granny Smith and one is just a red apple. Once you have your items typed out, you just need to enter the calories, carbs, protein, or whatever you put, again, just one time. And for this tutorial, I think that 5 items is a good place to start. Now that that's filled out, we're going to go back to the meal tracker and we're going to start to actually do some really cool Excel magic to make this work automatically. So we know ultimately, like we said, we're going to go in, we're going to type 1/1/2023. We're going to say that we ate chili and we want the calories, the carbs, and the protein to appear automatically. The function that's going to make those appear automatically is known as an XLookup. So right now I'm inside of cell C2, the first row where it's underneath calories. And we're going to start by typing equals XLookup. Now, if this part of the video goes a little bit fast for you, I did make an entire video just on XLookups that might be helpful to watch. But I think that if you just follow step by step, you should be able to get the proper thing to appear, and it should make sense. But check out that video if you need a little bit of extra help, or just put a question in the comments below. So we've started with equals XLookup and with an open parentheses, and the first thing that we need to click is the lookup value. And for the lookup value, we're going to click where it currently says chili, so B2. Once we have B2 highlighted, we're going to click comma again, and then it switches to the lookup array. And what this is this is Excel asking you, where do you want me to look for the word chili? The answer to that question is inside of the library. So right after the comma, you can see that the XLookup is still engaged. We're going to click on the meal library tab. Even though we've switched tabs or switched sheets right now, we're still typing out that same XLookup function. And the reason that I can tell that is because there's still the same data in the formula tab up top. For the lookup array, the next thing we want to click is the A up top, because this is where we're going to write the food name. So we want Excel to look for the food name inside of column A. Once that's highlighted, type comma. And if you take a look at the formula bar up top, this is what your formula should look like so far. The next thing that the XLookup asks for is the last thing that we need to put into this one, and that's the return array. This is Excel saying, okay, if I find that word in B2 and I look for it in this column here, what do you want me to return? And the answer to that question, since we started this function inside of the calories comma, is that we wanted to return the number of calories, of course. So in the same tab here, we're still in the meal library tab. I'm just going to click on the B so that it highlights all of column B. Once that's complete, I don't need any additional data to make the function work. So I can just put a parentheses, click enter, and you can see now that the calorie should have appeared that I put associated with that item. Now maybe you put something different like soda and it's returning the calories for soda. But at this point in the tutorial, you should have an item in the meal library that has got an amount of calories listed, carbs, and protein. We should have an XLookup that's referencing what you wrote down in B2, and it should be returning the calories that you put in the meal library. Now we're going to move on to carbs and protein, and it's going to be super similar, but I'm going to go through it a little bit quicker since we know what we're doing. So we're doing equals XLookup again with an open parentheses. Again, I wanted to look for the B2 because that's where I'm going to type my item. Put a comma. I want it to look in column A again, of course, comma. But this time, instead of putting B to return calories, all I need to do is click the C this time because I want it to return carbs. Close the parentheses, click enter, and it's now saying 40 carbs. Last thing we're going to do is protein, XLookup, look up B2, look for it in AA, comma, return the protein for me, enter. And now when I type in chili, I'm getting the calories, the carbs, and the protein automatically. Now you might be a little bit panicked right now and think, holy shit, that was the farthest thing from automatic I've ever seen in my life. And luckily for you, we don't need to do this every single time because that was painful. What I want you to do now is we've got 3 cells with 3 XLookups. I'm going to highlight from C2 over to E2 so that all of them are highlighted. And then I'm going to move my cursor to the bottom right of that highlighted area. And you can see that it changes from maybe kind of like a big white T to kind of like a black filled in T. And once it's turned to that black filled in T, I'm going to hold down on my cursor and I'm going to drag down the XLookups. And you can see that the rows on the side are going down. That shows that obviously I'm dragging it super far. Now it doesn't matter too much how far you go, but to make it clean, I just went to 1,000. And everywhere I dragged the formula down, I got a bunch of zeros, which means nothing right now, but that's good. And now I just want to test something out to make sure that everything is working properly. You know that I put chili as an item. It looks like I also put apple. I'm just going to put in some fake data to see if our function is working properly. I'm going to say that it's now the 2nd of 2023. And I'm going to eat just an apple. And when I click enter on the apple, you can see that all of the information automatically populated. I'll zoom in a little bit to make it easier to look at. One more time, I'm going to do 1, 2, 2023 again. I saw that there was an orange in my library. I'm going to click enter, and now the calories, carbs, and protein have automatically calculated. And if you think about it, just right now, this is huge, and this is crazy good progress because you've taken maybe 30 to 50% of what these fitness apps are doing for you, and you've made it in Excel in a way that you can customize. You're now in a position to add any sort of family, home cooked meal, or custom recipe that you have, type the calories, carbs, and protein one time, and then be able to just enter what you ate that day and have the information automatically appear. And in addition to that, you could put sugars or any other sort of parameter in here in the same library. You could put the same column then in the meal tracker and have that automatically appear. So that's great progress for the small amount of time that we've spent inside of Excel. We've made great progress so far, but there's a lot that we're going to keep adding to make this even more robust. So right now in current state, we can put it in, we see that it automatically appears, and that's great. But we're going to get this spreadsheet to the point in this tutorial where we can also have calorie goals, carbs goals, and protein goals. And then we're going to have Excel kind of track that for us to see if we're meeting those goals or if we're not meeting those goals automatically. So we're going to get to the point where, you can see that I ate 2 items on January 2nd. It's going to add those together. It's going to say, hey, we've got a 200 calorie goal. Are we above or below that? So the next step that I want to do is kind of move towards that goal that I just talked about. I'm still in the meal tracker tab, of course. Next to where I put protein, I'm going to type out calorie goal. Took a second to make it colored nice again, and now we're good to go. And where it says calorie goal, I want to type out what my calorie goal is every single day. So this could fluctuate if you've got a certain diet or a certain plan. But in my example here, let's just say that I want to have 1,500 calories every single day. So all I need to do, if that's my case, is I need to type in 1,500. And then if I double click where the cursor changes to that same symbol as before, it's going to automatically populate that 1,500 down to the bottom of where I dragged my data. And again, by putting a 1,500 here, it just means that my daily goal is to just meet 1,500 calories. So now we're going to make a cool graph to track our progress and kind of see if we've met that goal. To do this, we're going to use something called a pivot chart. The first step that we need to do is I'm going to click in between the A and the 1 again to that kind of half square in between the two to have everything highlighted. I'm going to go to the Insert tab up top on my spreadsheet, and where it says Pivot Chart, I'm going to click right above it on more of the icon and not the word. This is the default that appears, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK. And at this point, you should have just kind of a blank, disgusting looking box like I have here. If you're not familiar with pivot charts, they're pretty simple once you get the hang of them. I've got a top area up here that lists every single column that we've created. And all we need to do is take these columns and drag them into one of these 4 buckets below. So to start, I'm going to move my cursor over date. I'm going to hold down on my cursor, and then I'm going to drag it until I get to the axis bucket. And once I'm over that axis bucket, I just need to let go. I'm going to take calorie and I'm going to drag it down into the values bucket. And then the final thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the calorie goal and I'm going to also drag it into that values bucket. And I'm going to put it below where the sum of calorie is that I just placed. So at this point, my chart looks like this, and yours should look fairly similar. If it looks a little bit different, it might be because you entered different food. So Excel is kind of calculating the totals a little bit different. So looking down in my values bucket right now, it says sum of calorie and then sum of calorie goal. And where it says sum of calorie goal, there's a little drop down arrow, and I actually want to click on that super quick. And the bottom field that appears there is value field settings. And I'm going to have us click on that right now. This little box should appear, and you can see that it defaulted to sum. I'm going to have you actually click on average and then click OK. And now your chart should be converted to this, which probably doesn't look much better, but I promise you we're getting closer to something that doesn't look like garbage. Now I'm just going to right click onto the graph anywhere, and I'm going to scroll down to change chart type. Once that's clicked, I've got all these different options of what I want my chart to look at, but what we're going to click on is combo, which is the bottom one in my screen. My chart defaults to having the sum of calorie be a clustered column. You can see here and then the average of calorie goal as a line. And that's how I want it to look. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK here. And now my graph looks something like this. Now I find this a little bit hard to look at, but it's going to make more sense if we clean it up a little bit. The first thing that I want to do is you can see that a blank space is pulling in here. So I'm going to click date on the bottom left of my graph. You can see that 1/1, 1/2, where I entered the 2 dates that I ate food are currently in here. And I want to get rid of where it says blank because I just find that distracting. So I'm going to uncheck that box. Everything else is checked, and then I'm going to click OK. On the top right of this graph here, you can see this little green plus sign. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to click on axis titles and chart titles. I'm going to make the chart a little bit bigger so it's easy to look at. And then I want to relabel the chart title and then the axis titles. So I just need to click where the text appears, and then automatically the text cursor opens up, and then you can just highlight your text and label it whatever you want. Now, ultimately, what we're going to make here is a daily calorie tracker. So I'm going to label it just that. When you're done labeling your chart, you can just click off. And then I'm going to click into both axes to label these as well. The y-axis, I'm going to label daily calories. And then the x-axis down below, I'm just going to label dates. And this is, of course, pretty cosmetic. It doesn't really affect what your data is actually presenting, but I find it a lot easier to look at. Now, anytime I do something new in Excel, I always like to go back and I like to just make sure that it's working before I progress any further so that I can fix problems as early as they occur. So right now within my spreadsheet, you can see that it's saying that on 1/1, I had 512 calories, and on 1/2, I had 115. And just to prove a concept, I want to see if it automatically updates when I say that I actually ate more on 1/2. Let's see if we can get it above that 115. So I'm going to go into my meal tracker. I'm going to type in 1/2 a couple times. And then I'm going to go to my meal library to see what I typed in. And French fries have got a lot of calories and chili has a lot of calories. So I'm just going to type in French fries super quick, click enter, and I'll say chili, because I know that that's going to add a lot of calories. I'm going to go back to my chart, which Excel has labeled automatically as sheet 4. And it looks like it's still pulling 115, which might appear to be a problem at first, but this is about the easiest problem in the world, and especially in Excel, to fix. If you right-click anywhere on your chart, you can see that the top thing that appears is refresh data. I'm going to click that once. And then automatically it refreshed everywhere that it's pulling from. So it appears that that went up when I click refresh, which is great. I want to just trial one more thing, and I want to say, is it going to pull in the new data if I add a couple more dates? Because right now, obviously, it's just pulling the 2 days. I want to make sure that it doesn't break when I wake up tomorrow. So I'm going to say 1/3/2023. I'll say 1/4/2023, and then we'll do just 1/5/2023. And every single day we'll say that I was feeling really healthy or really unhealthy, depending on how you look at it. And I just had 1 orange every single day. Going back to my chart, it looks like it didn't update. This time when I click refresh data, it still isn't updating. But the reason this time why it isn't updating is because if I click into the date area down below, you can see that it didn't select the dates this time. So maybe to make this automatically update and be a little bit easier, I'm just going to click the select all button. It's going to pull in the blank, but honestly, that might be better than needing to click the new dates each day as they appear. So from here, once everything's selected, I click OK. And I don't remember exactly what the calories were at, but I know that they were all the same. And it looks like 1/3, 1/4, and 1/5. I ate all the same thing, and it is pulling that in. Okay, I lied. The blank space is driving me nuts. I'm just going to unclick that for the sake of this tutorial to make everything look nice. Now we can go in every single day. We can see where we're at calorically, and we can see if we went over or under our calories. And through the power of editing, let's just pretend that on 1/4 we really chonked out and ate a lot. And here you have it. You can now clearly see what days you went over your calories and what days you were within your goal. One last thing I should tell you, If you really want to deck out how your chart looks, if you click Pivot Chart Design up top here, you get a bunch of awesome options that you can just click on, and they're kind of pre-made and look pretty cool. So I'll just click on this darker one. I think it looks nice and it has a good, clean look. So we've made great progress. We've got a meal tracker, we've got a meal library that we understand, and now we've got a really cool chart that we're going to be able to use the entire year to see if we're under or below our target. Now, obviously, we just did this for calories. We could do this for protein, we could do this for sugar, or whatever, but we're going to get to the point where we've got a million charts on a million different sheets down below. And there's a way that we can kind of clean up our spreadsheet to make it a little bit easier to look at. So at the very beginning of the tutorial, I asked you to make a fitness overview sheet. And the reason why I did that is I kind of wanted to make a home page where we log into Excel, we open it up, and then all of our trackers appear on one nice tab so that we don't need to click between 15 different things to see where we're at. So all I really want to do here is take this chart and I want to move it to the Fitness Overview tab. To do that, you can just right click anywhere on your chart. Towards the middle, you can see that you've got the option to move chart. I'm going to click on that. And this here is asking you, where do you want the chart moved to? So it defaulted to the tab that we're currently in. I'm just going to click this drop down and we want to move it to the Fitness Overview page. So I'm going to click that one and then I'm going to click OK. And now on my Fitness Overview page, I've got a really good looking chart. And on sheet 4, which is where the chart previously was, I've just got the information pulling in. This step is again optional, but because sheet 4 I'm not really going to be looking at, I'm going to right click on the sheet and I'm going to click hide down below, and that's going to get rid of it. So I don't need to see it anymore. Now that data is still there. It's still pulling in. And if I were to right click any of the 3 tabs that remain and click unhide, it's going to appear again. But for the sake of making our spreadsheet really nice to look at, we're just going to hide it here. So we've made some crazy good progress and we're getting close to the end of the first phase of this tutorial, but there's still a couple of really important things that we can add here that is not going to take a lot of time. I think that it'd be really cool if when we log into our spreadsheet or when we open up our spreadsheet, we're able to see what the current date is and how many calories we're at for the day so that we've got a good idea of, okay, how am I doing today and how many calories do I have left? And to do that, we can just write a couple of simple functions up top here. So I'm going to move my chart just a little bit towards the bottom so that I've got room in cells, let's just say A1 to A4. I'm going to zoom in a bit so it's a little bit easier to look at. And here I'm going to type today because we want to know what day it is. I want to know what our calorie target of the day is. I want to know how many calories we consumed. And let's find out how many calories we have remaining. I'm going to make the column a little bit bigger. I'm going to make the text a little bit bigger. I'm going to add some borders. And of course, I'm going to add just a little bit of color so it's nicer to look at. And just so you know, everything that we're going to write here, we're only going to need to do one time when we're setting up the spreadsheet. It's going to automatically populate every day that you log into this. So the first thing that we want is to know what today is. And that is probably the world's easiest Excel function. I'm going to double click into B1 so that I'm in this cell next to where it says today. I'm going to type equals today, and then I'm going to do an open and close parentheses with nothing inside of it. From here, I click enter, and you can see that the day that I'm filming this tutorial, it is currently 12/2. I'm going to highlight B1 to B4. I'm going to center the information by clicking this area, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just so it's nicer to look at. Next thing that I want to know is what the calorie target for today is. And to do that, we're going to do an XLookup again, but it's just going to be a little bit different from before. So right now I'm in cell B2. I double clicked in so that I can type, and I'm going to do equals XLookup with an open parentheses. From here, what I wanted to actually look up is what the current date is. So to do that, because B1 automatically updates, I know that if B2 is looking at B1, it's always going to give us the most up-to-date current calorie. That was a long-winded way of saying that you should click B1 for the lookup value and then type comma. Where you want it to look for B1 is we're going to click over to the meal tracker. I'm going to highlight again all of column A, so I'm just going to click on A. I'm going to type comma, and this time what we want it to return is not the calories, not the carbs, not the protein. We actually want it to return the calorie goal. So I'm just going to click on column F this time. After F, before you'll remember that we closed the parentheses and clicked enter, I'm actually going to type 2 commas and then I'm going to put a -1. You can watch my tutorial on the topic if you want to learn more, but long story short, we do this because we can put 1500 multiple times on multiple dates. So if there was a contradiction where, let's just say that the calorie goal was different on this January 2nd date versus this January 2nd date, putting a -1 tells Excel to just look for the first time that it sees January 2nd and just roll with that. So once I have typed out what the function looks like up top here, we just need to close the parentheses and then click enter. And you can see this time that a hashtag NA error has appeared. And you might be thinking to yourself, why is this happening? It's because if you're paying really close attention, we haven't set a calorie goal for 12/2 of 2022, right? All of the data and all of the goals that we put into our meal tracker started in 2023. So just to make sure we're not crazy, let's just say that it's 12/2, 2022, and let's just say that I had an orange and I already put that the calories are at 1500 for the goal. Back at the fitness overview, now when it looks for that date, it sees the 1500 as the calorie goal. For calories consumed, we're going to use something different from a lookup function, so that's exciting. Inside of cell B3, I'm going to type equals SUMIF with an open parentheses. And of course, a sum function tells Excel to add a bunch of stuff, but a SUMIF function tells Excel add this stuff only if a certain parameter is met. And in our case, we want that parameter to be, is it today? So the first thing that we need to do after the parentheses is open is go into the meal tracker tab again. And where it's asking for the range, I'm just going to click on column A again. I'm going to type a comma, and then I'm going to click back into the fitness overview tab. Once I'm in this tab, I'm going to click on B1, which is where the current date is appearing right now. And I'm going to click comma again. And for the final thing that it's looking for, which is called the sum range, one last time, we're going to go into the meal tracker. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click column C. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm looking up how many calories I have left today. And I want to click on the column that has the calorie information specifically. I'm going to close the parentheses after my function looks like what I have written up here in the formula bar. I'm going to click enter. And you can see that on this day right now, it's returning 60. And just to recap, the reason that it's doing that is it's right now pulling that it's December 2nd. And within my meal tracker tab, the only thing that I wrote down that I ate on December 2nd is an orange, which I've got as 60 calories. So everything is pulling correctly right now, it seems. Luckily for us, calories remaining is going to be the easiest function that we do. I'm inside of cell B4 right now. I'm typing equals, and all we need to do is click on cell B2, which is the target for the day, and then click minus how many we consumed. So it's literally just equals B2 minus B3. Click enter, and you can see now that I've got about 1400 calories left for the day. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I'm going to move my really cool chart up here. I'm going to resize the chart so that it kind of fits in the screen better. And now when I log in the new year, I can go in, I can see what the current date is, what my calorie target for the day is, how many I've consumed, how many is remaining, and then maybe what the last week has looked like. So we've got all of this great information related to diet, and we kind of focused on calories specifically. But we're going to take this even further to meet our fitness goals. In the next video, we're going to add functions that allow us to track exercise. It's going to take the calories that we burned working out and subtract it from what we've ate that day in order to give us an accurate calorie count. If you're like most people, you're also going to want a weigh-in tracker to see how much you weigh and how much you've lost or gained over time. We're going to add that in here as well, and we're going to put it in this overview tab so that we can see where our weight is and if we're meeting those goals. All right, so this is part 2 of our super awesome, amazing fitness tracker journey. In part 1, we set up this spreadsheet. We can type out an item and the nutritional info will automatically appear. We made a super cool chart that updates automatically and will show our daily calorie intake. And we made a super cool summary page that shows us how much we ate today and compares that to the target that we set to show us how many calories that we have left. Today is part 2, and we're really going to beef things up. We're going to add a fitness tracker that tracks how many calories you burn during a workout. And we're going to have that tracker take those calories and add them to your daily allowance so you truly have a good idea of how many calories you have left every day. We're going to make a cool chart that shows you what exercise you do and how many calories it burned over a period of time. And lastly, we're going to add a weight tracker so that you can adjust your target as the year progresses and also see where you stand in relationship to that target, ultimately to find out if you're meeting your goals or if you're falling behind. Now, if you missed part 1, I recommend you go back and check it out before starting here. We're going to be doing a lot of the same functions that we used in part 1, so I'm going to be covering them a little bit quicker than before. So let's get started. Currently, I've got the exact same spreadsheet that we finished part 1 with last time. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to make an exercise tracker that counts the number of calories that we do for every exercise. Rather than starting from scratch, let's click on the meal tracker down below. I'm going to right click on the tab. I'm going to go to move or copy. And then where I have the option to either move it, I'm going to make sure that I click the create a copy box. To keep things organized, we're going to select move to the end and then click OK. And you can see down below in all of our different spreadsheets, we now have a meal tracker 2. I'm going to right click on this meal tracker 2 and I'm going to go to rename and I'm going to type out exercise tracker. I'm going to click enter when that's done. And now we have what's going to become the exercise tracker. Now, of course, this was set up for food, so we're going to want to change a couple things. We'll keep the date the same. Where it says food, let's change that to exercise so that we write down what exercise we performed. I'm going to highlight columns D through F, right click and click delete. And where it says calories currently, I'm going to put calories burnt because we want to know how many calories we burn for every single workout session that we do. I think that we should add a couple more columns as well. So I'm going to right click on the C and I'm going to click insert and let's write out duration to see how long we worked out. And I'm going to want to put that in hours. And the last thing that I want to do is I'm going to make another gray column like this one. And I want to type out calories burned per hour. We'll just do calories per hour here. And now we kind of have the good bones, I would call it, of what the exercise tracker is going to look like. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to clear all of the data that's currently in the tracker because it's set up the same way that the food tracker was. And since we're kind of making this completely different, we can kind of start from scratch. A quick way to do this is I'm going to highlight A2 over to E2 because that's my last column. Once everything's highlighted, you can hold Shift, Control, and then the down arrow. And it's going to highlight all of the cells on your spreadsheet. From here, I'm just going to click delete. And then when I go back to the top, it looks like it's removed everything, which is perfect. Now, if you remember from part 1, we had the meal tracker and all the information that pulled in the nutritional info pulled from the meal library. So similar to that, we're going to go in and I'm going to make an exercise library the same way. To save some time, we're going to do the same thing that we did with the tracker, where I'm going to right click on the meal library this time, and I'm going to do move or copy. I'm going to click create a copy, move to the end, click OK. I'm going to right click to rename this. Instead of meal library, I'm going to say exercise library. Click enter. And this time I really only need 2 things. So I'm going to delete columns C and D. I'm going to change the name of column A to exercise because we want to know what exercise we're doing. And then column B, I'm going to say how many calories are burnt per hour. And we're going to use this per hour format to standardize all the exercises that we do. And then in the tracker itself, we're going to give Excel the ability to adjust the number of calories burnt based on how long we did it. Maybe that didn't make much sense what I just said, but all you got to know is we just need to search how many calories are burnt per hour for what exercise we're going to be doing, and we're going to have Excel figure out the rest later. So inside this library, we can enter some common exercises that we do. Here I just added some basic ones. I did biking, swimming, and running, and I just estimated what the calories were, but you can either go to Google and maybe find the values based on your height and weight, because that will, of course, affect how many calories are burnt. Or you could have more specific ones, like you could say maybe running hills, and perhaps that burns a couple more. You can be as specific as you want, but for my tutorial, I'm just going to keep the 3 because I feel like that's more easy to work with. So now that we have the exercise library built out, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the exercise tracker down below. To make this a little bit easier to understand, I'm going to put in some fake information. So I'm going to put in a date that I worked out, we'll say today, when I'm making the tutorial. We're going to say that I swam today, and I'm going to say that I actually did it for a half hour. And since we put the duration in hours, I don't want to put 30 minutes. I'm just going to do 0.5. Obviously, if I did a full hour, I would just put the number 1, and you get it. So in column D and E, but we'll start in D, we're going to do XLookups again, similar to how we did in part 1. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click equals XLookup, open the parentheses. This time for the lookup value, I'm going to click on B2 because I'm going to have it look for the exercise performed. I'm going to click comma. And now once the comma is typed, I'm going to go over and I'm going to click the exercise library tab. Once I'm over there, I'm going to highlight column A because this is where it's going to look for that word swim. I'm going to type another comma, and I want it to return the number of calories per hour. So I'm going to click on B this time. And once that's clicked, I can close the parentheses, click enter, and now you can see that Excel is returning the number of calories that are burnt per hour from swimming. Now this is cool, but obviously we know that we only worked out for half hour. So I'm going to click into cell E2. And here we don't really need a function, but we're going to use some basic arithmetic inside of Excel. So I can just click equals, and then I'm going to click D2, and we want to multiply that by the value in C2. So I'm going to click on C2, and I'm going to click enter. And you can see now Excel is returning the amount of calories burnt as 300. Just to kind of test this out, let's click into C2 and let's pretend that I actually worked out for 1 hour. So I'm going to type 1. You can see that calories burnt adjusted to 600 calories. And let's say that I was feeling really crazy that day and I swam for 3 hours. Well, now it's saying that I burnt 1,800, so that's perfect. Keep it reasonable, I'm going to do the 0.5, goes back to 300, and we are good to go now. So we now have a function that returns this. I'm going to highlight D2 to E2. I'm going to grab the bottom right corner, and I'm going to drag it down quite a ways. I've taken the function, and I've dragged it down maybe about, 1,000 cells or so, and then I'm going to let go. And all these zeros appeared, which is good because it means that the function is present inside of the cells, but it's not returning anything. I'm going to just test this out to make sure everything is working properly again. I'm going to say that it's today again. And this time, let's say that I ran. And let's just say that I did this for 1 hour, and I'm getting the NA error. Now, the reason for an NA error with any sort of lookup is because the lookup isn't finding the value that you specified, that first value that we put inside of the function. So the easy thing to do when this happens is go to your table array and see if the value is there. So obviously in the XLookup, it's looking for B3, and I put ran, and it's not seeing it. So I'm not going to click inside of the function. I'm just going to click the tab to kind of look. And you can see here that I wrote run, not ran. So that's the reason why it's returning the NA error. I'm going to click back on my cell. I'm going to type out run this time to see if that helps. Click enter. And now, perfect. I ran for 1 hour, or I run for 1 hour, maybe would be a better way of saying it. And it returned that I burnt 400 calories. So that's wonderful. I know that this now works, and I can put out whatever workout I want, and it's returning the calories properly. So don't worry about doing this necessarily. You can if you want to, maybe pause the video, but I'm going to enter some random data here just so that I can see if the chart that I'm about to make is going to work properly. So with the power of editing, 3, 2, 1, I have a workout history for the last week or so. Next, let's add a chart so that we can see our progress and see where we're at. I'm going to click on the little area between the A and the 1 to highlight everything. We're going to click Insert tab up top, and then where it says Pivot Chart right here, I'm just going to click the kind of icon above it. We're going to leave everything how it defaults, and I'm going to click OK. And the first thing I like to do with any pivot chart is change the name of the tab. So you can see that it named it Sheet 3, which is not helpful to me at all. I'm just going to say Exercise Pivot. That is, of course, optional, but it keeps everything organized and beautiful. I'm going to click into that white chart again, and then you'll see the area over to the right appears, just like it did with the fitness chart that we made, or the calorie chart. We're going to take the column that said date up here, and I'm going to drag it down into the access bucket, let go, and nothing appeared, but that's okay. And then we want to take the calories burnt, and we want to drag it down to the value bucket. Release, and now we're starting to see some progress here. I'm going to make the chart a little bit bigger just so you can see it, and we're going to add some cosmetic changes to it. So I'm just going to name this maybe Calorie Workout Summary. I'm going to get rid of the blanks because you know I hate that. I'm going to click the Design tab up top, and I'm going to make it look a little bit cooler. I'll click this dark format because I think it looks pretty slick. And one thing that I think would be really cool with this is if we had additional data so that we can see at a high level what kind of exercise we performed. So to do that, I'm going to take the exercise column over here, and I'm going to drag it into the bucket that says Legend with series in parentheses. I'm going to let go. And now you can see it's the exact same information, but it differentiates what kind of exercise I did, which it's definitely optional, but I think it's kind of cool. I resized a little bit more, and I would say that overall I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I'm going to right click on the chart, and I'm going to move this to the Fitness Overview tab like we did last time. So right click, we're going to scroll down, and we're going to click on Move Chart. This little box is going to appear, and it gives us the option to move it into a new sheet or into an existing one. And we want to do the object in, which is kind of like the existing sheet. I'm going to click the drop down, and we're going to select the name of the sheet that we want it moved to, which is the Fitness Overview. Once that's selected, I'm going to click OK. And now you can see that our chart appeared, which is super cool. I'm going to zoom out. First, I'll close this, and then I'll zoom out just a bit. I'm going to move it over to the right so that it kind of matches where our calorie intake is. So if you're following along, I log into my spreadsheet here, or I open it up, and I can see by this sheet how many calories I ate each day, and by this one, how much I worked out and how many calories I burnt each day, which is really kind of cool. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is super important. I need you to make sure that you like the video that you're watching right now and click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Doing this tells me that you like the content, and I'm going to keep making more. I'm new to YouTube, and it really helps me out. Back to Excel, let's keep working on this Fitness Overview tab. So I'm going to move these charts down just a little bit to create some room. And in my mind, when I've used a fitness tracker in the past, it's been really helpful to log into the tracker, know how much I've ate each day, and know how much calories I burnt or how many calories I burnt so that I have a good idea of how many calories are remaining, right? And I think right now, our tracker, we set it up so that it just has how many calories we ate. It'd be kind of cool to have a different row here that also says how many we burnt. So to do that, we don't really need to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to insert another row and make a function that does just that for us. So I'm going to click on the 4 so that all of row 4 is highlighted. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to click Insert. So that put a little bit of a space between consumed and remaining. From here, let's label this one calories burnt, maybe. And inside of B4, which is the space next to calorie burnt, we're going to do the equals SUMIF function, just like we did in part 1 for the food. The first thing that Excel asks for is the range, which is where it wants to find the criteria. So the criteria is going to be, it needs to be today's date that the exercise happened. So I'm going to go over to the exercise tracker, and I'm going to click on column A. Once that's selected, I'm going to type comma. And now it wants to know what the criteria is. So back and forth, I'm going to click over to the fitness overview tracker, which is where we just were, and I'm going to click on cell A, or actually, excuse me, B1, because that's where we have the current day polling. I'm going to type a comma again. And the last thing that it needs is the sum range. So it looks for today's date over in the exercise tracker, right? It knows that it's today's date because we reference cell B1 here. Now it's saying, okay, well, what do you want me to add? So for the last time here, we're going to go over to the exercise tracker, and we want it to add column E because that's how many calories we burnt that day. I'm going to put a parentheses, and I'm just going to leave this up for just a minute so you can see how it looks up top here. Feel free to pause if you need to. And once the parentheses is closed, I'm going to click enter. I can see that it's returning 400 calories burnt today. Right now it's 12:16. Let's just go into the tracker to make sure that makes sense. Looks like I worked out once. I ran for 1 hour, which was 400. Yep, and it's burning 400, so that's perfect. So it appears to be working correctly. And the last thing I want to do in the summary area is I want to change this calories remaining because right now it's saying that I've got 1440 left. We also want to add into our allocation of calories per day the exercise that's burnt. So to do this, I just cleared the value. I'm going to click equals, and then in parentheses, I'm going to do my target plus the calories burnt because I feel like if I burn the calories, I can add that to my target per day. I'm going to close the parentheses, and then I want to subtract how many I ate. So B2 plus B4 minus the calories consumed. I'm going to click enter, and that is correct because it's saying that I should have 1900 calories per day to consume because I worked out for 400 and added that to my 1500 target. And then it subtracted 60 from it. And it's pulling this 60 because in my meal tracker, it looks like I just ate one orange, which was 60 calories. So this appears to be working correctly here, which is super, super exciting. I'm going to zoom out again, just so we can kind of get a good look at what we're doing. I'll move these around. And then the last thing that I want to do is I want to make a weight chart because obviously, you know, we've got the calories, we're looking at them, we're working out like maniacs. I want to see if our weight is improving or getting worse throughout the year. And this is going to be about the easiest thing that we do. Down below, I've got the exercise pivot tab. I'm just going to right click that and click hide like before, just to make everything clean. And since we're making a tracker, I'm just going to click on the exercise tracker, move or copy, create a copy, move it to the end, and I'm going to call this one a weight tracker. Get rid of the 2, click enter. And of course, with the weight tracker, we really only need 3 things if you think about it. We need the current date, what our weight is, and then we'll do a target as well. I'll keep the dates in to make it look clean. And then I'm going to add some random weights. And let's just say that my target is, we'll say 210 for a few days. And then we'll say that I adjust it to 205 because I somehow want to lose 5 pounds abruptly right there. And that's really all there is to a tracker. So in my scenario here, my expectation is that I'm going to probably weigh myself once per day, come in, and then just type in what my weight was, which you would need to do in any other tracker too, really. From here, I kind of like charts because I think they're easier to look at and easier to see the progress over time. I'm going to highlight columns A through C. I'm going to go to insert up top, and I'm going to want to add a chart. But to see all of the options, I'm going to click the little CL Charts button in the bottom right of that area. From here, I'm going to go to the All Charts tab up top, and you really have a lot of options on what you want to select. There's a million different chart templates for a million different things, but for me in this example, I'm just going to go to the line section, and I really like this one over to the right here. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click OK. It appears here. And let's call this one weight progress. You can see on this, our blue line represents what my weight is each day, and then the orange line is what my target is. So anytime the blue line is above the orange, I'm overweight according to the standards that I've set for myself, and anytime the blue is below the orange, I would say that I'm meeting my target, assuming that my target is to lose weight, of course. I'm going to click up in the chart design, the little dark template again, just to match the rest. We're going to right click on the chart like before. Let's click on Move Charts. We'll move it to the fitness overview. And now we have a third chart that will update as we put more information into it. And that's pretty much going to wrap up part 2 of this series. We now have a tracker that we can go into, enter whatever food we want. The calories will appear automatically. It'll tell us how much we want to eat per day and how the exercise that we did affects that calorie target. We also have a weight progress tracker to see if we're meeting or not meeting our goals. And that's about it, honestly. If there's anything else that anybody wants to see, make sure to put it in the comments below. I'm happy to make a part 3 if there's enough people that want a certain thing that I missed. But other than that, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and recommend any more projects that I can do that could help you out. Thanks again.